Hello everyone, my name is Chris and I'm the author of the, up until now, written blog cadukes.com. On here I've mainly covered VMware so far. I've spoken a little bit about my home lab, and I will probably cover maybe Unify and Cisco, maybe some Microsoft articles at some point. I thought I would start doing some videos because video training to me has proven extremely important in my path for certification and securing contracts with clients. It's a lot easier to learn and follow and rewind rather than reading text off a screen and trying to remember things. What I'm going to start doing is maybe 5-10 minute sort of videos covering different technology areas and different tasks that a beginner or intermediate VMware administrator would want to complete. If you've got any questions or comments on the video, please leave them below. And while you're telling me that my accent sucks and my instructional skills aren't brilliant, please feel free to check out the link to my website and have a look through. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create a Server 2019 template, and this template or VM template is going to have the VMware Paravirtual SCSI adapter instead of the default LSI Logic serial attached SCSI adapter. We're also going to have the VMXNET3 network adapter on there as well. Now the reason why we use the Paravirtual adapter is in high I/O situations such as a SQL database or SharePoint application perhaps. It offers better throughput, and that better throughput comes with less impact to CPU performance. So I think the metrics are around about 10% better throughput and an 8% reduction in CPU usage to gain that throughput. What I will say, for normal VM, it might be a bit overkill. It might just be easier to do it with the LSI Logic SAS adapter. I've read some people saying they've had problems with Paravirtual. That said, all of my VMs at home and the ones I've done for different clients and work, I've all used the Paravirtual adapter and I haven't seen any issues with it. Prerequisite wise, you need a physical host or a nested host within Workstation. I'm not going to cover that today, that might come in the future. That host should ideally have ESXi 6.5 or above on it, and you also should have a vCenter server deployed and that physical host attached to the inventory of that vCenter server. Now at home I've got 3 physical nodes, and I also have 3 nested nodes as well, which form my linked vCenter instance, which you can see down here. I'm not going to go too much more into that. That's just a basic overview of what I have. I'm using the Enterprise Plus licensing, which you can get from VMware Advantage for around about $300 a year. If you're intending on learning VMware or pushing towards your VCP or VCAP, I would say it's an essential purchase, and it's the only legal way that I know of that you can run VMware at home with all of the features. If you have one of the smaller or one of the cheaper licenses that works, such as I believe Foundations or Essentials, can't remember what it's called, you probably won't have access to DRS, so when you create a new virtual machine you're going to have to point it at a certain host. So at home I am lucky and I do have DRS and it is enabled on my cluster, so I'm going to go ahead and add a new virtual machine. Now this wizard should be fairly straightforward to those that have been working with VMware for a while, so I'm not going to go over each of the different options in too much detail. Just going to call it 2019 template and add it onto my vSAN data center. If you do not have a DRS license when you're selecting your compute resource, if you select the cluster, it's going to tell you that you don't have a DRS license and you must put it onto one of the actual hosts itself. If you do have DRS, just pop it onto the cluster and DRS will actually decide where it's best for that that virtual machine to go. At home I have 2 data stores. I have a QNAP data store and I also have a vSAN data store. The vSAN data store is all flash. The all flash disks are contained within the 3 hosts, ESX1, 2 and 3. And the QNAP data store is a 1TB iSCSI provisioned disk from my home QNAP, and I use this for ISO files or putting the VMs onto if I have any issues with the vSAN data store. What I will say is, when you're creating a template, if you know that template is only ever going to go onto one data store in the end, then save that template onto the same data store where the VMs spawned from the template are going to reside. Because, for example, if I create the template on the QNAP data store and the VM is going to go onto the vSAN data store, all of the data which are contained within that template is going to have to be copied between the 2 data stores. Whereas if it's on the vSAN data store, it's going to be a lot faster. Now, different production environments have different rules for where templates and VMs go. This is what I would recommend, but you should also always go with your company policy. Compatibility wise, at home I'm running 6.7 update 2, so I'm going to select this. Unless you're running a really quirky version of an operating system, I would always choose the latest compatibility mode that you have, unless you know for a fact there is a chance that that virtual machine is going to have to be restored onto an older version. For example, you may have multiple clusters at work, and one of the clusters at 6.7 update 2 and the other cluster is at 6.5. Create the virtual machine at 6.7 update 2, you're not going to be able to vMotion it or power it off and copy and power it back on onto the 6.5 host, because the hardware is going to be incompatible. I don't have anything older, so I'm going to choose 6.7 update 2. Now, what I will cover briefly as well is the VM versions. So if I select 6.5, it's going to have VM version 13. If I select 6.7, it's going to be version 15. Now, as each version of ESXi comes out, the virtual machines are capable of having more resources assigned to them. So if I don't know the figures off the top of my head, but for example, the memory, you can add an awful lot more memory to a virtual machine in 6.7 update 2 than what you can in 6.5. Just head over to VMware.com and have a look at the release notes for the different ESXi versions, and it will cover that in more detail. So in here, I'm going to choose 2016 or later, which obviously includes 2019. You should always choose the closest guest OS to what operating system it is that you're running. Now we're on the new virtual machine customized hardware screen. We're just going to leave the CPU and memory as the default, and we're going to leave the hard disk as default. What we need to do is here on the SCSI controller, we're going to drop it down. And as you can see, the default is LSI Logic Serial Attached SCSI. We're going to change that to the VMware Paravirtual adapter. Now, when we install Windows, it doesn't know what that adapter is unless VMware Tools is installed onto the virtual machine. But we can't install VMware Tools onto the virtual machine until we've installed the operating system. So how do we come over that? I'm going to cover that in a second. The network interface out of the box will be an E1000 adapter. We're going to change that to a VMXNET3 adapter. It's the same premise here, where Windows, I can't remember in 2016, 2019 if it understands. I don't believe it does. I don't think it knows what adapter that is. So we're going to have to install VMware Tools. What VMware Tools gives us is the native drivers for said operating system to be able to interrogate the VM hardware that it's talking to. As is true with any operating system, we're going to have to attach an ISO file from the operating system to build. In my QNAP data store, I've got a Server 2019 ISO file right here. That's what I'm going to attach to the virtual machine, and I'm going to select Connect Tap Power On. I'm going to just close that one. Now, when I said before about you can't build an operating system if it can't see the hard drive, but you need an operating system to install VMware Tools, there's a little bit of a, it's not so much of a cheat, but effectively we can give Windows the driver in the installation part of the operating system, before VMware Tools is installed to allow it to talk to the SCSI adapter. The way that we do that is we add a new device, a new CD DVD drive, and we're going to connect it to a data.iso file. Don't know why, but in 6.7 and 6.7 update 1 and 6.7 update 2, within here, the contents, ordinarily you should see linux.iso and windows.iso, but they don't show. So what I've done on my environment at home, I've logged into my physical host number 1, ESX1. When you log in, you're at the root, and in the root we have a folder called Products Locker. Now, if you don't know what that is, bear with me. If you do, just skip forward about 20 seconds. But if we go into Product Locker and have a look at the contents, we can see we've got the VMware Tools folder. Now, Product Locker is one of the partitions or slices, depending on which terminology you use, that the SCSI installer creates when you build it. Now, at the box, Product Locker is mapped to here, and that's where all your tools are. Now, when I'm looking in my environment here, that's the folder it's looking at. I don't know why it doesn't show it in here. So what we can do is we can copy the windows.iso file to our ISO repository. In my case, it's QNAP and then ISO. Now, I've already done this, so I don't know whether it's got an error or not. I'm just going to do it anyway. It's not errored, so it's probably overwritten. So if we go back to our new virtual machine wizard within the QNAP data store and the ISO folder, we've got the windows.iso file, and then we connect that at power on as well. Now, when you're creating a template, you want to assign it with probably minimal resources, and then when you deploy a virtual machine from that, you can change the resources as is required by the application. What I will say on what I've just done here is if you upgrade the hypervisor, the windows.iso file is going to change as well, because it's going to have a new VM version. That new VM version will require a newer version of the drivers, and as such, when the upgrade happens, this folder here is going to have new content placed into it, so you're going to have to repeat this. Now, there is a way of configuring vSphere so that it looks that it saves these files to a shared storage between the hosts. I'm not going to cover that today. I may do that in the future, but that might be worth something considering if you're managing a lot of hosts. For now, we're just going to create the virtual machine and then power it on. So we're going to open up a console here. It's going to be my VMware workstation. As you can see, it's gone past the part where you ask for it to boot from DVD, so we're just going to give the virtual machine a reboot and press any key to boot from CD or DVD, and now Windows is loading its files to install. Just bear with me while it's going through. I'm going to choose UK keyboard because I'm from England, if you hadn't guessed from my accent. And we're just going to wait for setup to finish starting. I guess it's just looking at the hardware and everything and loading the installation media. So I'm just going to do server core because it's going to be a lot quicker. Most people still use desktop experience, I guess. But for the purposes of this tutorial, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to accept the license terms without reading because I think that's what everybody else in the world does. And we're going to go to custom install Windows only. As you can see, it's saying we couldn't find any drives. To get a storage driver, click load driver. Now this is why we attached the VMware Tools ISO file. to the virtual machine. And as you can see here, I've got the Server 2019 ISO. I also have the VMware Tools ISO attached. Within there, we keep going, drilling down into VMware Tools, drivers, Paravirtual SCSI. We're going to go to Windows 8 because that's what you want for Server 2012, I believe, and onwards, or might be 2012 R2. Then we're going to choose our 64-bit driver. I'm not sure who's still using 32-bit hardware for running Server 2019, but there you go. Now Windows is now going to start interrogating this driver and then seeing if it can see any new hardware. So after a couple of moments, we can see our 40 gig C drive here. So we just choose next and Windows is now going to start installing. I'm just going to pause the recording and it will resume once Windows is finished installing. Okay, so Windows has installed and configured some devices. And the first screen we get in Server Core, and this is true of the GUI as well. So it's asking us to change the password, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. So put in your super duper strong password without typing with fat fingers, I guess. There we go, the password's changed. Now, ordinarily, if we didn't have the VMware Tools ISO file or ISO mounted, we would just click here, install VMware Tools. That's grayed out at the moment. I think it's probably because the ISO is attached. But we can't do that. What we do, however, do is we go to the E drive because that's where VMware Tools is. And it's the same if you're in the GUI, you just open File Explorer and go to the E drive and just go setup64.exe. What this does is install VMware Tools. So we're just going to go through and do a typical setup, next, finished. And it's going to ask for a reboot once it's done. Just wait for the VM to reboot, and once it powers back up, we are nearly done. Now in organizations, when you're creating a template, there may be certain agents that you wish to install or certain customizations to perform within Windows before you create your template. The purpose of this video is just covering the VMware side, so I don't really want to go into that too much. But you might want to do things like clearing down the event log, disabling the Xbox services, maybe putting a SolarWinds agent on there, or your backup agent if you need one, or antivirus or whatever else before you shut the machine down. So one final step that we need to do, and that's to disconnect and remove the second DVD drive that we've attached to the virtual machine. So we're just going to go in and edit the settings, and then we're just going to delete DVD drive 2, and then we're going to disconnect the installation media, press OK. Okay, that's failed. Not sure why that is. Bear with me. This was not intended. There you go, they're disconnected. So now I'll be able to delete it. It's because I didn't disconnect the ISO before deleting it. I was getting ahead of myself. There you go. So if we go and look back at the virtual machine, just log in. We look at the D drive, which is not there, and the E drive is not there. So now we shut down. And once it's shut down, we name it appropriately, and then mark it as a template. There you go. And then we just right click, and then template, I can't see for looking, convert to template. That machine's going to disappear off because I'm looking at the host and clusters view, but we can go to the virtual machine view. You see I've already got one done before, but all we do to create a new virtual machine is right click on the template and then new VM from this template. You can apply VMware custom actions to templates. That's within policies and profiles. And we can do things in here such as change the name of the VM. We can put the operating system registration info in. We can change the name. We can insert a Windows license if we want. We can change the local administrator password, time zone. We can prompt user or put in DHCP or what we want to do with the network settings in here, and we can even join it to a domain. This generate new security SID. I think people on the internet are going to argue until the cows come home as to whether that's required or not. There are a lot of highly respected Microsoft people who say you don't need it. I, however, am a bit old school and I just tick it for safety. I guess it's up to you whether you want to do that or not. I don't think it actually makes much of a difference to enable it, so I do. I probably don't have to. Someone will tell me I'm wrong, I guess. But there we have it. This has been my first instructional video, so I've probably made some mistakes along the way. If I've gone too fast, or I've gone too slow, or haven't explained anything enough, then please do leave me some feedback, because I can't learn if you guys don't provide feedback and let me know where I'm going wrong or going right. So if you could leave something, that would be massively appreciated. Over the next couple of weeks I hope to get some more things coming up, so stay tuned. And again, visit my blog, leave a comment, and take care. Thank you.